if the COVID-19 vaccine is safe for their children and teenagers. On top of that, since we're in the middle of flu season, parents also have questions about their children receiving both the flu and COVID-19 vaccines. My name is Deptina Johnson, and I am a nurse educator at St. Peter's University Hospital in New Brunswick, New Jersey. Today, I'll be speaking with Dr. Susan Brill-Goldberg, Chief of Adolescent Medicine at the Children's Hospital at St. Peter's University Hospital. Dr. Brill-Goldberg will answer the questions parents frequently have about the COVID-19 vaccine. Dr. Brill-Goldberg, welcome to St. Peter's Better for Life podcast.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Awesome. We are so excited to have you here. So I'm going to start with question number 1. Why should children and teens get vaccinated against COVID-19?
Since the pandemic started, there's been a lot of debate about whether children needed to get immunized against COVID, because certainly at the beginning, the disease that children were getting was mild, and for the most part, and most parents were unsure about whether the vaccine was safe. However, over the last couple of years, since the vaccine's been in use and now it's FDA approved, I think a lot of those safety issues have been very reassuring, and now we know that children can get both some severe illness against COVID-19 as well as some longer post-COVID symptoms that can be very concerning. So by vaccinating children, adolescents, and of course adults, we're not only preventing illness that could be severe, but we may also be preventing other conditions that happen subsequently.
Okay, thank you. What if my child already had COVID-19? Should they still get vaccinated?
So this is a very common question. I get this asked all the time because at this point, many children have had it. Some people don't know if their children have had it, but because of particularly with the advent of home testing, a lot of parents are aware their kids have had it. And often it's been mild, not always, but often. And they say, well, my child now has natural immunity. Why do I now have to get vaccinated? But what I tell them is that natural immunity will take them a certain distance. However, if they had COVID 2 years ago or more, they had strains, likely had a strain of COVID that's no longer in circulation. And with the newer strains, they can get it again. And in fact, many people are getting it multiple times. And it's worth preventing it, both just for the inconvenience of having COVID as well as the risk of serious disease.
Okay. Now, if my child already received the original monovalent booster, does my child need to get the new bivalent booster?
So that is an excellent question as well, which I get asked all the time. And there's debate about whether children need the new booster, particularly if they had the monovalent booster after their original primary series. Some, even experts in the field, are wondering whether it's worth doing the bivalent booster because the immunity and the immune benefit that they get is fairly short-lived.
Okay.
However, my attitude and my practice is, if nothing else, just for the hassle factor of not getting COVID again, I think it's worth it. And it also, again, in any child who is immune compromised, asthmatic, diabetic, overweight, any particular high-risk situation, that's a kid that I would probably be extra careful and really recommend all the boosters that would be available, including the newer bivalent booster.
Okay, thank you. The COVID-19 vaccines are developing rapidly. How do we know that they're safe?
This, again, is a question I get all the time. A lot of parents are saying it's too new, I'm not comfortable with it. And this has actually been a phenomenon of several vaccines, particularly vaccines such as HPV vaccine, where there was a lot of concern about the newness of the vaccine. These vaccines have been extensively tested in the real world. There's literally been billions of doses that have been given out on this vaccine. And although there are certainly some side effects to the vaccine and there are rare complications from certain vaccines, the overwhelming majority of individuals who take this vaccine have no untoward reactions, and I believe it is a very safe vaccine. So I'm very comfortable to recommend it. And in fact, now the CDC just put out and AAP endorsed the new guidelines for 2023 for vaccinations for children, and COVID is now added onto the routine vaccination schedule.
Okay, great. Thank you. Now, speaking of routine vaccines, do I need to wait after getting a flu vaccine or another vaccine before getting a COVID-19 vaccine?
No, happily, an individual can get both at the same time.
Okay.
They may get side effects from one or the other vaccine or not. One of the things that I noticed that was striking compared to adults who were getting the vaccines is that the kids in general had fewer side effects, even the, more nuisance side effects like fever and feeling unwell. The kids seem to do very well with this vaccine as a whole, and there's no reason to withhold getting the flu shot. And in fact, it's important to get both because influenza has been circulating, particularly earlier in this fall this year.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Brill Gerber, thank you for sharing your expertise with the parents listening today. To our listeners, please join us next time on the St. Peter's Better for Life podcast. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks so much.